40 years ago, I took my first vows in the Society of Jesus. And my mother wanted to tape the vows. And I told her, Mom, please don't tape the vows. But she didn't say yes or no. I went on to pronounce my first vows on a beautiful Saturday afternoon, kneeling before the Blessed Sacrament, because that's how you take vows in the Society of Jesus, after the Mass, before communion. And I was to go first. And I started the vow formula saying, Almighty and eternal God. And all of a sudden you heard in the church, do, 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 which was a song called Funky Town that had just come out and was just produced right before, like in March 1980, and I was taking vows in April. And at this point, the Jesuit superior and the provincial who were holding the bread and the cup, their faces dropped and looked around what was happening. But I knew. My family had brought a tape machine with them to tape the vows. And my brothers hit the wrong button. I heard later on that my first cousin, who was about 16 at the time, she turned to her mother and said, "What idiot brought a radio to church?" Well, it was her own family, her aunt, who made this all possible. Anyway, I tell that story because my mom good-naturedly wanted to capture the moment. You know, she had one of those 78 recordings of her own marriage vows, so she wanted to capture it, preserve it for all posterity. Well, that was not to happen. Similarly, Peter wanted to capture this moment. Had he done it, we would know which mountain the transfiguration took place. Many believe it's Tabor, but it's never said in any of the three synoptic gospels where this scene is recorded that it took place there, just as on a high mountain. It could have been Mount Horon or one other mountain. But that moment could not be captured. Why? Because Jesus wanted them to move on. And interestingly enough, that song, Funky Town, is about moving on. You got to move on. Talk about moving. Keep me grooving with some energy. Those are lyrics in this song. And so it really does inspire us to go forward. Now you could understand why the disciples did not want to move from that mountain and come back down and maybe stay there and still worship there. Why? Because they didn't know what to expect. And Jesus is making all these reports that he's going to be crucified. And so who wants to face that? In fact, Peter, soon after this, will hear from Jesus, "Get behind me. I must go forward towards Jerusalem." Because the cross and this moment of the transfiguration are very much interconnected. We see here on this mountain Jesus revealed in glory, but we see on the hillside outside of Jerusalem Jesus crucified in shame. Here his clothes are shining, dazzling white. There they will be stripped off and the soldiers will gamble for them. Here he's flanked by Moses and Elijah, two of Israel's greatest heroes representing the law and the prophets. There he will be flanked side by two criminals. Here a bright cloud will overshadow the scene. There in Jerusalem, darkness will come over the land. Here Peter blurts out how wonderful it all is. There he'll be hiding in shame. So, and here we have the voice from God declaring that this is his beloved Son. There, a pagan soldier will declare in surprise that this really was God's Son. And so we must learn to see in the glory of the glory in the cross, and the cross in the glory, knowing that our journey down from the mountain must continue again and again. We cannot capture time, stop, change. No, we're always called to go forward, down from the mountain, with our own suffering and glory, our own darkness and light, death and life. They all belong together. Had we stopped at the transfiguration, we'd never get to the greatest miracle of all, the transfiguration. I mean the resurrection. The whole big dramatic ending, the resurrection. Transfiguration, cross, resurrection.